Warning, this video contains real-life stories about deaths and injuries related to Pokemon Go. Viewer discretion is advised.
Playing video games is arguably one of the safest things to do in the world, right? Wrong. No, that's not right, man. Stop spreading lies. Come on.
What if I told you that in 6 years, 10 months, and 5 days, the mobile game Pokemon Go has caused over 90 incidents and 26 of those being fatalities? This app actually holds the leading cause of death related to a video game. Like, what other video game literally has a website that breaks down the total death and injury count for the game? It's crazy. You might be wondering yourself, how does this even happen, Dax? And well, I think it's all because of one thing, but we'll get to that later in the video. But first, let's talk about a battle for a gym that happened in Pokemon Go that ended up leading to a battle of the fists. You see, in June of 2018, a father and a son were put behind bars for beating someone over a gym. This story all begins when the victim threw a Gatorade bottle at the car of the man and son who he had thought had taken his gym. At the time, he was with his friends, but later when he was all alone, the 31-year-old son and 7-year-old man went and attacked the man by throwing a Gatorade bottle at him, then wrestling him on the ground and then throwing him in the lake. He fought back, but it was a vigorous 2-on-1 and there wasn't really much he could do. He ended up leaving with a left eye injury, a broken fingertip, and some face damage. Overall, the son and the father were charged for the assault, but apparently this wasn't even the first time that father specifically had fought someone over Pokemon Go. It's crazy to think people can get so aggressive over a video game in which you actually fight somebody. Just goes to show the danger of the game. But sometimes the danger actually doesn't come in other people, and it actually comes in your surroundings. I guess this warning Pokemon Go gives us is trying to tell us something. You see, in July of 2016, when the game first came out, in Encinitas, California, 2 players who were playing Pokemon Go had ignored a fence and had fallen off of a cliff trying to find a Pokemon. They had climbed over a fence that had a bunch of warning signs right by the beach and were later found by a man looking down at them, in which they had fallen 75 to 100 feet. It took a team of lifeguards, police officers, and firemen to get the man's back from safety, and they even had to cut through a fence. One of them was actually left unconscious as well from the fall. The 2 were left with moderate injuries and I believe were charged for trespassing, but it just goes to show that you gotta be aware of your surroundings or else you could get very easily injured in Pokemon Go. Though they probably shouldn't have climbed over a fence with a sign on it. Now luckily they were able to get off scot-free with some minor injuries, but some people unfortunately didn't. In the same month of July of 2016, when the game first came out, a 15-year-old girl was actually hit by a car trying to track down Pokemon while playing Pokemon Go. The 15-year-old daughter had gone out to play Pokemon Go in Pennsylvania when she stumbled upon a near highway. And bang, just as she was crossing the street, she unfortunately was hit by a car. She suffered collarbone injuries, a foot injury, and some cuts on her face, and nowadays is fully recovered. But it just goes to show you really have to be aware of your surroundings. And also, if you do have younger children playing the game, keep an eye on them, because they can go anywhere and kids are hard to control sometimes. Now, one thing I've learned about Pokemon Go players is that we look weird. And this put 2 trainers in a very dangerous situation back in 2016. It was an early Saturday morning around 1 a.m. when 2 trainers who were hunting for Tauroses and Marowaks had stopped in front of somebody's house. This had woken up the homeowner around 1 a.m. and he got his handgun to go outside to investigate. He noticed that there was a car and 2 people in it, a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old, on their phone. Don't believe he saw the phone, because apparently what he heard them say is, "Did you get anything?" This had made the homeowner think that he was about to get robbed and these 2 were scoping out a house to rob. He quickly jumped in front of the car, pointing the gun at them and telling them not to move. The 2, frightened, sped away as quick as possible and he fired a couple shots at the car. No one was injured in the end, but it just goes to show that if you're playing Pokemon Go at 1:30 a.m. in the morning, you can look pretty sussy. At the end of the day, I guess I hope they found a Tauros and a Marowak they were looking for. Not really sure what to say about that story. Now, do you think you're a hardcore Pokemon Go player? Well, I don't think anyone here is as hardcore as this guy. 21-year-old Michael Baker was catching Pokemon near Forest Grove, Oregon at 1 a.m. Again, a lot of these stories from like late at night. Trend much? He was walking down the street when he saw someone approach him. As he walked by, he asked the man, "Hey, are you playing Pokemon Go?" And the man turned around and said, "What? What happened next?" Like, I don't even believe this. Michael Baker said this, and I quote, "I guess he wanted to battle me because he came at me with a knife." Crazy that he said that. So yeah, Michael Baker was stabbed at that moment and the man ran away. But what happened next shows how this guy is hardcore. He did not go to the hospital. He says, and I quote, "Right after I was stabbed, I continued my mission to Plaid Pantry for my mission for chips and a beer. I basically risked my life." I believe once he got to the Plaid Pantry, police showed up on the scene and he actually refused medical treatment from them for a little bit until he was finally medically treated and he got 8 stitches. His final quote was, "It's important to me. I've basically got to catch them all." If you ever thought you were hardcore, would you still play Pokemon Go after being stabbed? Now, most of these stories have led to injuries to people who have been playing Pokemon Go, but sometimes Pokemon Go affects people outside that bubble. Specifically, on April 15th, 2017, Luis Loanzo and Eric Mitchell had been on patrol when Macy's department store was robbed. They were called to the scene to respond, but they didn't respond. 5 minutes later, Mitchell alerted Loanzo that a Snorlax had just popped up at 47th and Limert. They then decided to drive around for 20 minutes trying to find that Snorlax while a grocery store was being robbed. Finally, sometimes incidents are not actually physical. For example, Reddit user P4755166 shared a rather awkward story about AR scanning in Pokemon Go. They're at their local park, AR scanning a Pokestop, my guess to try to get a Poffin in Pokemon Go, when a group of 11 people were kind of looking at them. All of a sudden, one of the women screamed, "Hey, turn off your webcam, we can see you filming us." If only they understood. He didn't say anything and he started walking away when the woman started running towards him with their camera out taking photos of them. She said that she was gonna post photos of this creep on the local Facebook group so everybody would know to stay away from him. The Reddit user said that, yeah, I'm probably never gonna AR scan because that was a terrible experience. There's a reason I scan the floor every time I'm doing an AR mapping scan. Not trying to look like a creep. Now, why does this stuff happen, right? Out of all the video games in the world, why is this the only video game that is leading to injuries and even deaths? And it's really all because of one thing. Pokemon Go takes you out into the real world. I like to think of it as a double-edged sword. It's amazing that Pokemon Go allows you to go into the real world. Obviously, this comes with the challenges of the real world. It's not a forgiving world out there, and there's a lot of dangers that come along with just walking down the street some days. So I know this video is more negative and not on a positive end, but I wanted to make you guys aware to be safe out there. Stay aware of your surroundings. Be careful where you go and what is going on around you and how you may be perceived while playing Pokemon Go. Because Pokemon Go is truly one of the most dangerous games in the world, if you let it be. If you want to read more about these stories, I'm gonna link below the Pokemon Go death tracker, which has links to all the different stories of injuries and deaths related to the game. I couldn't cover all of them. Overall, please be safe out there. Make sure your loved ones are safe. Follow for this, everybody. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.